were my home once. Before you were overrun by these elves, dwarves, humans, they meddled with a power they didn't understand.
Hello everyone, welcome to GGS Gamer. I'm here with Kieron from Larian Studios. Hello.
How are you?
Hello Kieron, yeah, thank you for taking the time for us.
No problem.
So, obviously, Divinity Original Sin 2 is already out on PC. It's a massive deal for those who've already played it, and it's on the way for console come August 31st, I believe.
That's it, yeah.
Yep. So, just in case people who are watching haven't played it yet, could you kind of give us, without giving too many features away, because otherwise you are going to ruin my entire interview, could you explain what Divinity is?
Sure. So Divinity Original Sin 2 is and the definitive edition, is a top-down, turn-based, party-based RPG. So there's a good 80 to 100 hours worth of story in there. It's up to 4 players multiplayer. And it very much is about a story about you being able to explore a world and interact with it the way you want to interact with it. And ultimately pursue the goals of your character.
Great. Okay, so that's it really, isn't it? Is that a massive part of it is about exploring. You've opened up, as soon as you start the game, you can pretty much go out wherever you want and explore, can't you? Obviously, you don't want to go to certain areas.
Sure, yeah. I mean, very much when we design our levels and our worlds, we do our best to make sure that you don't feel constrained in any way. And that includes the tools that we give you to sort any puzzles or problems ahead of you. And while it's not a completely pacifist game, for instance, you'll definitely get into combat. There's a lot of our situations that you'll find that you'll be able to get out. So, for instance, if you're playing on the Xbox build right now, which is the first 15 hours of the game, that's essentially you trying to escape this island prison. Now, to get out of the prison part of the island, there's at least 4, maybe 5 scripted ways of getting out, and maybe a good 8 or 9 on top. So there's about 13 or 14 different ways of escaping using the systems in the game as well as the scripted ways of exiting. So if we give you tools like teleportation or sneaking there's a companion you can get as well. Like, there's multiple different ways of actually escaping the island that our players actually discovered in early access on PC. So we very much try and create systems and worlds that you can interact with the way you want to.
Great. Okay, and one of those different ways you can interact with people, as you say, is you're actually able in the game to kill pretty much any NPC you want. Is that right?
Yeah, this is very true. Yeah. So the reason why you're got a kind of in there is because there's some pretty powerful ones that will probably make it difficult for you. But the way we design our system and our game in general is we have a idea that we had from our first game, actually, Original Sin 1, where we have an idea called M+1 design. An M+1 design essentially means that if there is a way of solving the quest, there must be multiple ways, not just +1. So there must be always a +1. So, for instance, say you need to get through a locked door. There are multiple ways of getting through there. And this is obviously very basic, but you could lockpick the door, you could smash through the door, you could burn the door down with your fire spells, you could actually sneak around and get through the back door, you could bribe the person who has the key to get through the door, you could pickpocket that person, you could kill that person, you could teleport past the door. There are multiple different ways of doing it, and that's the same for every portion of the design. So, for instance, when we're talking about, say, a key NPC, if that character has something that is essential to the story that you need to learn, and you could just murder them, or your friend murders them when you're not around, there will be ways of figuring out what you needed to learn off them.
See, Kieron, you already picked up on exactly what I was going to ask you in a second. No, that's absolutely fine. So, that's what I was going to ask, though, because obviously the game boasts like a ton of different side quests. Obviously, it's got a really interesting main story as well. But if you were able to go around killing anyone you want, is that how you've managed to then keep that core gameplay that core story in place while still giving players that freedom?
Yeah, so, I mean, don't get me wrong, if you start murdering everybody, then obviously you're not going to get to listen to over 1 million words of dialogue, and our writers would be very sad. But if you wanted to complete the main quest of the game, which is ultimately to become divine, there will be ways of flowing to that point with or without the dialogue that you would have avoided by killing people.
Cool. Okay, and then just obviously I have to ask this: if you could kill anyone in the game, just in the game, who would it be and why?
That is pretty much the first time anyone's asked me that question.
Did it again.
I would kill one of the origin stories. I would kill Red Prince.
Oh dear, why?
I love that guy, but I think he's too... Like, if I was in that world, me and him wouldn't get on very well.
Okay.
Which is really hard for me to say because I really like the guy who wrote him. But the character, I don't know.
So if he's sitting at home by now watching this, he's going to be like, Kieron, why?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and don't get me wrong, Red Prince is one of our more popular characters, so a lot of people enjoy that character. But if I was in that world and I was living through that experience, I don't think me and him would last very long.
All right, and then just naturally leading on from killing stuff, the combat system in Divine is still actually... What the game does so well is it brings so much of what we like about classic RPGs back into modern day gaming. But one of that is the turn-based battle system. So I was going to ask, why did you go for that turn-based battle system still, rather than going for like more real-time system?
Well, there's a couple of reasons. The turn-based system was in there from Original Sin 1, and a lot of that was because of the nature of the combat that we had created. There's an awful lot of elemental surfaces and interactions that you can play with that, frankly, you wouldn't even probably experience as well if it was real-time or even real-time with pause. Also, when you're dealing with multiplayer, real-time with pause becomes really awkward. And real time is the same situation, because then you feel like you've got all these different skills that you can't use because you don't have time to assess the situation. So we wanted to make sure that one thing that you might not know is that every single one of our combats is hand created. Nothing is randomly generated or randomized, and very often you'll see that while you might encounter the same enemy multiple times, for instance guards in Fort Joy, every single combat has been specifically designed with different scenarios in the environment or with the characters or the skills that they have to make sure it's a new challenge every time. So if we're giving you that every time, it's going to be hard for you to assess those challenges without the gameplay actually supporting turn-based combat. So with multiplayer, though, would probably be the biggest thing, because if you're making a multiplayer game, we don't want it that one person dominates the pause button or whatever else. So by doing turn-based, we also find that actually it's a little bit more accessible, because then it means that you don't feel rushed or compelled to act. You can actually plan out your turn.
Okay, great. Right. Even though the game does deal with some pretty heavy themes and, it's quite dramatic the whole way through, I think one of the things that players have always praised about it is that it's been able to be incredibly funny as well. So, you'll see townsfolk, or you see even the animals as well, have always been known to be able to, drop a funny line here or there. So how difficult was it? And I know it's kind of an awkward question to ask, but how difficult was it to actually inject that kind of humour into a fairly dense, serious story?
Sure. Well, actually, again, from Original Sin 1, possibly some of the comments from Original Sin 1 would have been that we had too much humour in there, and we were quite aware that while we wanted to stay true to our humorous roots with some of the dialogue, we knew we wanted to inject a certain type of gravitas into the situation, which I'm glad that you're recognising. So the reality was simply just practice. I mean, we have, I think we're on 9 writers when we launched Original Sin 2, and each one of those guys went through rigorous amounts of iterative process. So we, like the same pieces of dialogue, when we were learning the style that we wanted to do, even the style of how you select your options changed from Original Sin 1 to Original Sin 2. A huge amount of time went into that. So tone and voice and how we interact with the world, a huge amount of that was iterated on multiple times. And so very often the team would work together to actually basically read over their own works and make sure that they're all staying consistent with each other. And very often when it came to the humour, there was 1 or 2 people in the team that leaned towards that, and they were very good at that. So for instance, Sir Laura, who is our DLC character, is coming out for the Definitive Edition, has a very funny premise. He is a squirrel knight who's riding a dead skeleton, and skeleton cat, should I say. And he is essentially running from the Great Acorn. And if you played Original Sin 1, there was squirrels in there that already talked about the Great Acorn, so we've been talking about this since Original Sin 1. So Sir Laura now is this knight who will take you as essentially his squires, essentially, and he will lead you through the world then as that result. So his whole dialogue system, first of all, you won't experience if you aren't picking Pet Pal as a talent. He still needs the Pet Pal ability to talk to you. You will get an awful lot of chirps and cheeps if you don't have the Pet Pal, so there's still some dialogue there, but it's different. But if you have Pep on and you interact with him, you're going to get that humorous edge to the game with his dialogues. And the person who wrote that was Stephen, one of our writers, and he has a great talent for making sure that those things come through, and so do the rest of our writers. Awesome. And it just came with practice.
Yeah. Oh, great. Right, so there's only 2 more questions, Kieron.
Okay.
One of the biggest features that stood out for me as well when I was kind of doing my research for the game, and I've been playing it for a bit, was the Game Master feature, which is a really awesome idea. For those of you who don't know, basically, actually, Kieron, why don't you explain the Game Master feature for us?
Sure. So the Game Master feature was essentially a way of you taking 4 friends plus an additional 5th person to control the world and the system as the Game Master. And so the Game Master was able to create a universe for them to play in and have a playground, essentially using the tools of the game.
And I just have to ask, how did that idea come about?
Well, it came about, first of all, it came through the Kickstarter. We kind of put it up as a $2 million stretch goal, as a dare to the community. And frankly, the mode itself, it has to be congratulated because it's never really mentioned that much. The mode itself was made by, at most, I believe, 5 people, probably less. There was 1 or 2 key designers and then a few others that were helping out, and everyone was dipping in and out to help out and to involve each other. But very much it was a very small core team that said, we're going to make this as good as we can, and then certain teams like the art team or the UI team came in at certain points to help. But I mean, it was very much the love child of a certain small core.
Sorry, I can just imagine this core team sitting there watching the Kickstarter a bit, going, "Ah, it's not going to get there."
No, if anything, the team was really excited to make it, you know, and it's definitely a particular part of the community's gravitas towards that.
And it's a feature that's definitely grown loads since the community got their hands on it. So
so the modding scene took over and added to it, which we obviously expected because it's kind of a sandbox in that way. I mean, it's one of the bigger things, unfortunately, that we weren't. It's pretty much the only thing that we weren't able to bring to console because of the controller situation.
Of course, yeah. I was going to ask though. So on the PC version, then we will get back to the console version.
That's all right, yeah.
But with the Game Master feature, have you been able to get it? Like, have you been able to have a go on any maps that or any quests created? Yeah.
Well, I've actually led a couple of Twitch streams on it with various YouTubers and streamers. So I really loved it. I'm a big tabletop fan, so I love the system and I love it having it in the game. But yeah, there's quite a few wonderful maps made by the community, which are frankly a lot more than we were expecting when they were first made.
Awesome. Right. Very last question. Actually, no, sorry, 2 more questions.
That's all right, keep going.
In terms of, okay, so first of all, when PS4 players and Xbox One players do finally get to have a go on this, what's the one tip that you would give them? If you could only say you have to do this one thing.
The one thing is take your time and don't feel like... I would say take your time. Because we're quite aware that this is the sort of game it not usually comes out on console. If anything, we're sad about that because I'm a console player and I want this sort of game on console. And so very often people will look at our game and go, whoa, this is a little bit more than I'm expecting. But the reality is that if you've played the likes of Witcher or Skyrim or any of these, the scope shouldn't really intimidate you. If anything, it's just like have some fun and explore the sandbox that we've given you. Use the various bits that are interesting to you. So if you are liking teleporting everywhere, or if you're liking just burning everything down, or you don't want to talk to anybody and make the writer sad and kill them all, go for it. Just enjoy and take your time and don't feel like you have to rush through it or listen to everything. You just play it the way you want to play it.
Great. And then the very last thing, were there any features in the game for either the PC version or the console version that you really wanted in there, but you just didn't have the time? Or similarly, is there anything that you were really hoping wouldn't make it in the game that just didn't make it either? If you had an idea, it was like, oh no, we can't do that.
Well, no, there's a couple of things that we would have, as with any development, I can't even say much about it because we'd still like to put some of it into to something else in the future if we can. But there are a couple of, we expanded our skill trees. So we went from, I believe, 8 to 10. Now we added 2 new ones, which was the polymorph and metamorph. Polymorph and metamorph are the same, but we have the conjurer and the metamorph, and those are huge new classes that our fans obviously hadn't experienced in Original Sin 1. And when we were dabbling with the summoning abilities of the conjurer, we were definitely thinking about various things we could do there. I mean, there was mad pitch docs about essentially making a Pokemon version where you could capture people, which obviously wouldn't have worked, but
that would have been amazing.
It would have been. At the same time, it's like I want to play that game. So there's lots of things that we would obviously like to put in. There was a couple of things that our engine was limited on because we are building our own engine. Divinity is built on the Divinity engine, so we have a team of coders that work on that engine. So there are things that are going to be improved that we would potentially be able to do in the future that we weren't able to do this time. But I mean, we're really happy with the content that we got in there, and a lot of the design and the philosophy for us is making sure that if it goes in there, it has to be really, really good. It has to add to the experience, and it has to be not just in there for the sake of it, or only in there, half done and half baked.
Great. Okay, well, Kieron, thank you so much for talking to us. Obviously, original Divinity Sin 2 is out on PS4 and Xbox One August 31st.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so make sure you do pick up if you haven't played it yet, because it's really good fun. And I'm looking forward to burning down some villages. More. Right, thank you very much.
No worries. No worries.
Only one mistake during an interview. That's some kind of record for me, guys. Anyway, that was us speaking to Kieron Kelly from Larian Studios about the upcoming release of Divinity Original Sin 2 on PS4 and Xbox One. It's arriving August 31st. If it looks like your kind of thing, guys, make sure you do pick it up. It looks like a lot of fun. If you've already been playing it on PC, do drop us a comment. Tell us if there's anything, we should try out for it when it comes out. Or let us know about the Games Master thing as well, because that looks really cool. Anyway, guys, remember as well that Kieron does have his own stream channel. I've left the channel location, the URL, sorry, in the description below, so do check it out. It's a lot of fun. If you enjoyed it, guys, please do leave us a like, leave us a comment, and we'll see you next time. Okay, thanks, bye. Sorry, I almost forgot. The reason why I'm doing this layout, obviously, is that you can subscribe to our channel, and so here, you'll see our subscribe channel, and there, yeah, right here where I'm pointing, you'll see one of our other videos that you can check out. And down here, where am I? Down here, there we go, is what YouTube thinks you should watch next. Who knows? I don't. YouTube does though, apparently. So anyway, guys, enjoy that. Subscribe, watch another one of our videos. Go on, they're alright.